Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. As we age and we begin approaching midlife, probably a few of us have had the experience of wearing glasses, perhaps for reading, or when we were younger we needed to correct our vision so that way we could kind of read our studies a little bit better. Some of us may even be driving and eventually finding ourselves that we need those glasses so we can observe the road signs and see what color the lights are as they begin to change into the intersection. If you happen to be one of those unfortunate people that had to start out very, very early with glasses, you might realize that as the years go on, they get a little bit thicker. Alas, what is a person to do? Well, with this day and age, there are a lot of different modalities that may be able to help you actually put glasses away for good. Things such as LASIK surgery, for instance, is one opportunity. What if there were a better way to take care of something like that that actually help you recover your eyesight, perhaps to quite clear 20/20 vision, without having to wear eyeglasses, do LASIK surgery, or anything else that may be able to help you get there? Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program, as usual, we like to provide ways that you can achieve things such as this in a very natural way. On the Beyond 50 radio program today, we'll be talking with Mr. Gene Younger. We're going to be talking about what's known as the Bates Method for Perfect Eyesight. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Mr. Gene Younger. Gene, thank you for joining us here on the program today.
Thank you, Daniel, and also thanks to Joy for giving me the opportunity of being on Beyond 50's radio. And before we get too far into our discussion today, I would like to also give a shout-out and a big thank you to all my vision clients here in Portland and around the world. You know, my clients inspire me and keep me motivated to share this wonderful method with hundreds of folks here and around the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Now, this was something that for you was pretty much near and dear to your heart because you actually had to be one of those people who had to don glasses so that you could see things a little bit better, especially when it comes to the road. Tell us how all this started for you.
Well, actually I was pretty highly nearsighted or myopic and also had astigmatism. And I was working on a very stressful job at the time, which I think contributed to it. And, I put on somebody else's glasses, actually, and I noticed everything was clear. So the next day I went to the optometrist, and he prescribed glasses, and I was like, wow, I was so happy. But as I was leaving his office, Daniel, he said, now, Mr. Younger, these won't last forever. As you get a little older, your eyes will get weaker and you'll need stronger lenses. Sure enough, he was right. Ever so often for the next 15 years, I had to get stronger and stronger lenses and contact lenses until I could barely read the top line on the eye chart, without my glasses. And then it was a miracle because a lady showed up in my life named Gloria again, and she told me that there was a better way, that I could actually learn how to see clearly without glasses or contacts. And so that was around 1984 in California. At that time, I was on a much less stressful job. I was a minister of a church in Palo Alto, and Gloria came and to our church and talked to some of our people about it. I decided to take some lessons, and do you know what? Within 6 months, I could pass the California driver's test, and that required 20/40 eyesight. Within another 6 months of doing what Gloria taught me, I had 20/20 eyesight, and I've had it ever since. I don't know, that's well over 25 years. And I never needed reading glasses. And so when I retired, I decided, you know what, I want to do something constructive with my life, the rest of my life. And I went back to school and learned how to teach the method and, became certified as a vision educator and Bates Method practitioner. So I've been teaching almost 12 years now. and really enjoy it. I really enjoy working with people, and my greatest pay, Daniel, is when I see them having improved their eyesight, and then especially those people who are able to get completely rid of their glasses and have a whole different life. So wonderful.
Now, that's pretty exciting because you're talking about a natural method for one thing. And the other thing, too, is it kind of bucks traditional wisdom and how we ever came to use glasses or think that was the route to go in the first place. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's just probably, I mean, right off the top of my head, I say that we're all pretty much brainwashed into accepting the collective consciousness. Sometimes it's a white coat syndrome. If the doctor says it, you see all this advertising on television. It says, ask your doctor if such and such is right for you. Mm-hmm. You never hear them say, ask your doctor if eating a lot of spinach is good for you or drinking a lot of carrot juice is good for you.
Yeah, and the alarming thing now is that we get caught up in the conventional wisdom of following the doctor, and of course what the doctor does is prescribe something, and now what you see or you read about is these prescriptions all of a sudden have a long list of side effects, even though you're just trying to solve something that you didn't have in the first place, and that was one thing, but now you've got all these other things that you might have to deal with.
Well, that's true of glasses too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because when you put your glasses on and don't take them off, it's like wearing a crutch. After your leg is healed, your muscles in your eyes atrophy. They get weaker. At least they get less supple and responsive. So when you take your glasses off, it takes a little while for your muscles to recover so that you can actually see again. So one of the side effects of wearing glasses is that they ruin your eyesight. If you were to ask me what is the major cause of poor eyesight, according to Dr. Bates, the first one, believe it or not, is wearing glasses. Mm-hmm. So he insisted that his patients take off their glasses. And I do the same thing. I say, if you're going to heal your eyesight naturally, then the first thing you must do is be willing to take off your glasses some part of every day, beginning today. And then, if you can, increase it a little more and more. And allow your eyes to, and your eye muscles, and your mind, by the way, which is the biggest eye muscle, allow them to normalize. Because as long as you wear glasses, it's not going to work. And then the second thing is to be willing to have a prescription, if you still need a prescription, to have a little undercorrected, as much as you can tolerate, and also have the astigmatism correction removed. Because one of the worst things you can do is try to do the Bates method and then put on glasses with astigmatism correction. One of the first things that goes when you start doing the Bates method is astigmatism just disappears. And so now you put on those glasses again, and you have to reproduce the astigmatism to see out of them. Mm-hmm. So it's just really good not to wear glasses. Take off your glasses and see. One great optometrist wrote a book by that title, Take Off Your Glasses and See, and I borrowed those words to put on my home vision training program. Mm-hmm.
Now, it's pretty fascinating. Tell us now how it's known as the Bates method. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How this came to be created. What was the motivation behind that? One day was he like Sir Isaac Newton sitting under a tree and it just hit him, or was it more of a real pure observation and direct experience that sort of led to this?
Well, actually, it began with an ophthalmologist in New York City named Dr. William H. Bates. He was not only a practicing ophthalmologist, but he was also a teacher in the school, medical school there. Right. And Dr. Bates one day asked himself the question, and I think it was after he started experiencing a blur himself, he said, why is it that the human body will heal itself everywhere except the eyesight? You know, why was the Creator create a perfect body that would heal itself everywhere except the eyesight? And so he began to do research on his own to find out the answer to this question, and he discovered some really amazing things. First of all, his subjects in his research were not people with poor eyesight. They were actually people with good eyesight. He said, well, what is the difference in the people with good eyesight and the people with poor eyesight? Because he already knew about poor eyesight. He saw it in the clinic and the hospital every day. So he began to examine people with good eyesight, and he discovered several significant things. The first thing he discovered, which is quite not startling now that we've had this discussion, but he discovered that people who have good eyesight do not wear glasses. Whoa. So he thought, well, what if I ask my patients not to wear glasses as much as possible instead of wearing them? Maybe their eyesight will get better instead of getting worse, where I have to prescribe stronger and stronger lenses. Then he noticed, secondly, that the people with good eyesight were more relaxed. Not only just physically relaxed and with a more relaxed, less stressful lifestyle, but they also, if he took optical instruments like the retinoscope, ophthalmoscope, and he looked into their eyes, he could see that their eye muscles and their eye themselves were more relaxed. So he said, well, if I could teach people how to relax, maybe they could see clearly. And then the next thing he learned was that the people with good eyesight, as opposed to the people with poor eyesight, had more movement. Mm-hmm. Not just movement, you know, side to side, around, up and down, and all that, but a tiny movement inside the eye that's called a saccadic movement, saccades. It's more like a vibration, Daniel. Mm-hmm. Our eyes are vibrating, according to medical science, at least 60 to 70 times a second, and it can go higher, it can go lower. When it goes below that, then we begin to lose our eyesight. When it goes higher, then our eyesight is sharpened and strengthened. And so he discovered that people with good eyesight had more movement, not just movement of their eyes, but movement inside the eye, called a saccade. The next thing he discovered was that the people who had good eyesight had a more balanced use of their central vision and their peripheral vision. So he said, well, if I could teach people how to use their central vision more effectively, it would get stronger and they could see better. In other words, their brain would get more information, more data. Because when the eyes slow down and you're not using your central vision, then even though you receive the data, you know, millions of bits of information are coming into the retina all the time, but all of that information is not being transmitted back to the mind-brain where the vision takes place. And so he said, well, if I could teach them how to use their central vision more, they would be able to see much better. Then after more and more years of research, Dr. Bates found out that people who had better memory and imagination could see better. So he said, well, if I teach them how to imagine and remember better, then they'll have better eyesight. Because we actually, I don't know if you know this or not, Daniel, but we actually make up about 70 to 90% of what we see out of information that we already have stored in our brain.
Ah.
So he developed, out of all of that research, which he actually researched for over 40 years, or about 40 years, he developed what we call the Bates method. Now, he was not accepted. His theories were not accepted, even though it's a matter of record that he proved his theories before the American Medical Association, and they refused to accept them. Not only that, but as a result of the publicity that he got, he lost his privilege of practicing in the hospital in New York. And eventually he just gave up a lucrative practice to spend the rest of his life developing and teaching other people how to teach, seeing patients, but also teaching other people how to teach his method around the world.
That's just, it's, fascinating to know that this, it's something you really don't hear too much about, but yet, here it's developed. What you say, makes just a whole lot of sense. And, and it's obvious that that people really need to know about this. Now, tell us how this method works, or kind of give us a glimpse of what someone has to do when they go and pursue this, for one. And really, how bad has a person gotten, per se, that you've worked with, where they've been able to come from, point A, for instance, to getting to a point of pretty much having their eyesight restored? I mean, obviously, you wouldn't, have someone who was born blind naturally, for instance, but, being reasonable, all things considered, what is the worst that you've worked with, and how do you go about doing this? What is the process?
Well, interestingly enough, when you said born blind, that's reminded me there is a vision teacher in San Francisco that was born blind and was legally blind until he was 17, when a 16-year-old boy who had read Dr. Bates' book taught him the Bates method. He recovered his eyesight, and actually he continued and he became a teacher, but he also got a PhD from Berkeley in massage therapy, I believe. But his name is Meir Schneider, MEirSchneider, and he wrote a book called My Life and My Visions. And I actually was a little skeptical of that when I was told that when I was in vision teacher training, and so I went to San Francisco and met him, and I actually saw his unrestricted California driver's license. I said, wow, if he can do that, anybody can do it. Now, there are certain factors that will it easier for a person. So, a person who the strength of your glasses or the amount of refractive error is important, and it's not, all other things being equal, it is not necessarily an overriding factor. Mm-hmm. However, if you have a -9 in myopia, it's a long way to go from -9 to 0. Now, do you want to know what some of the factors are? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just, basically, what would they do when they come to see you and they want to correct their vision? Give us an idea of what the process is.
You're not asking what the profile would be, but you're asking what the practice would be.
Right.
Okay. Well, generally speaking, a person who decides that they are going to use this method to heal their own eyesight, they need to be willing to set aside some quality time every day for their vision training program. Just like if you're going to do yoga or meditation at home or some other spiritual practice or physical practice, you would want to set aside a certain amount of time every day. For instance, I take Tai Chi and I practice at home, but I set aside dedicated time to do that. And by the way, Daniel, do you know how many minutes we get every day?
Couldn't guess.
1,440.
1,440, okay.
So I recommend that people who want to heal their own eyesight naturally work up to 40 minutes a day, and that leaves them 1,400 minutes for eating, working, sleeping, TVing, whatever else they do. So you must be willing to set aside some time every day to do your practice. The second thing is, I mentioned it already, and that is you must be willing to take off your glasses some part of every day, sometime when you're not under stress. Not when you're driving or operating heavy machinery or something like that, but in a relaxed time. Just take off your glasses. Maybe you might be going for a walk up in the mountains, or you might be going in a park or something like that, or you might be around the house. To just take off, or don't put them on in the morning, for a while, to allow your eyes to function normally and naturally. And then the other thing is, a person would need to learn the basic Bates method, the basic eye exercise and activities, and begin doing them on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
They might need to get some coaching so that they can have a practice plan that works for them, that's tailored to their particular vision, lifestyle and vision situation.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have to be faithful to their practice. One Bates teacher said one time that he believed, and he's a doctor, by the way, he said he believed that the best results are obtained when people practice when they feel like it, when they can enjoy it, when their exercises produce no feeling of worry, nervousness, or stress. In other words, their work is progressing along and there's no hurry. You know, you don't say, I've got to get it, got to get it, got to get it. They're willing to accept gradual improvement of their vision and eyesight. And sometimes that requires them to get a weaker prescription, but we'll come to that later. Dr. Bates himself gave some valuable demonstrations of how one of the eye exercises helps troubles other than eye ailments if it's done properly. So what happens is that we have developed poor vision habits, the worst one being wearing glasses, other ones like staring and having less movement and being stressed out. And what we do in the Bates method is we just begin to retrain our mind and our body to function differently. You see, interestingly enough, we don't see with our eyes. Did you know that?
No.
We actually see with our whole self, but we see with our eyes plus our mind, our brain, our emotions, and maybe even our spirits. But the medical model that's been accepted for 200 to 300 years and still taught today says that we see about 90% with our eyes and 10% with our mind, brain, and emotions. Dr. Bates discovered that that's not true. It's reverse. We actually see about 10% with our physical eye, assuming the eyes are okay, and then we see about 90% with our mind, brain, and emotions. So if we see 90% with our mind, brain, and emotions, where's the problem if we have the blur? Where's the problem if we see with our 90% with our mind, brain, and emotions? It's in the mind, brain, and emotions. And if the problem is in the mind, brain, and emotions, where is the solution? Same place. So we retrain our mind, brain, and emotions indirectly so that we see correctly. So the neural pathways are changed. The information and instructions going from the mind to the eyes are gradually changed so that the eyes function normally and naturally. Did you mention what's the cause of poor eyesight? And I said stress or mental strain.
Right.
The Bates theory is based on the fact that it's not the lens. Lens is not the problem. According to Dr. Bates and his research, he discovered that the problem is in the shape of the eyeball. So if you have difficulty seeing at a distance, your eye, shape of your eyeball is too long, and the image does not land on your retina. It doesn't quite make it to your retina clearly. And if you have difficulty seeing up close, at that moment, your eyeball is too short, and the image would be clear behind the retina, behind the eyeball. So the refraction is off. And by the way, this distance between where your eye image is refracting now and the retina, in either case, is very tiny, which makes the Bates method very hopeful because you don't have to change your shape of your eyeball very much to begin to get improvement in your eyesight. So the next question is, okay, well, why does the eyeball not come to the proper place so that the image is clear right on my retina? Well, Dr. Bates found out that the reason for that is that the muscles, there are 6 muscles outside the globe of the eye called extraocular muscles, and he found out it was because these muscles are tense, they're stressed, they're tight, and they just can't function normally and naturally any more than you could run a marathon with a cramp in your leg. So when you have stressed eye muscles, the 6 muscles that change the shape of your eyeball, when those muscles are stressed, fatigued, or cramped, your eyeball can't change shape. Oh, by the way, Daniel, the eyeball is changing shape millions of times every day, all day long. Your eyeball is going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. In a nanosecond, your eyeball moves from longer to shorter. And if you are wearing glasses, of course, that process is restrained by the glasses, and your mind loses their ability to make it come to the right place. Mm-hmm. So the Bates method allows you to gradually train your mind and your eyes and your eye muscles so that it comes right there, and you have that image perfectly falling on your retina. And this doesn't happen overnight.
Well, that's very exciting. Now, Gene, could you give us a website people can get more information about your work and how they can pursue this?
Yes, actually, my website is clearvisionnaturally.com, or you can just put my name in Google, Gene Younger, and it'll come up.
You know, it's so fascinating, Gene, to realize that, as you were saying, that a lot of the loss of vision seems to occur, in the mind. It seems to be more from stress, where, as we would be told, well, this is something that occurs naturally as we age, and it seems like that's kind of one of those things that it's fed to us enough that you begin to believe it, and so therefore, as you believe, so forth, there it comes true.
Yeah, and everybody believes it. I mean, if you go out and interview, if you go down to the mall and interview 100 people, 99.9% of them will say, no, you couldn't do that.
Right.
So, yeah. Let me tell you something that Napoleon Hill said. I'm sure you know this, but I'll just repeat it for the audience. Napoleon Hill was an American authority who wrote a book a bestseller called Think and Grow Rich many, many years ago. And he's the one that came up with the famous expression, what the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. He said, create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and begin at once, whether you're ready or not, to put this plan into action. So anybody can do just practically anything if you let go of the limitations. Someone else said, argue for your limitations and you get to keep them. Argue for your limitations and you get to keep them. So you say, oh, well, you did it, but I couldn't do that. Well, that's true. Whatever you believe in the relative area is either true or becoming true for you.
Right.
In the relative area. In the absolute area, maybe it's not true. But in the relative area, anything you believe, say to yourself, is either true or becoming true for you. So one of the important things, and one of the first steps that I teach my clients, is check out what you're saying to yourself and others, and start reversing those negative things that you've been saying, and start making positive affirmations about your eyesight. Mm-hmm. Even if you have to take baby steps and say, well, my eyesight could get better. If you can't go all the way and say, my eyes are getting stronger, my eyesight's getting better, I'm more relaxed. I like this affirmation, Daniel. It's really worked for lots of my clients, and that is, every little cell in my body, and we have about 7 billion, by the way, every little cell in my body is 100% in favor of me seeing clearly now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't that a powerful affirmation?
Yes, absolutely.
When we get our intention and our attention lined up, we can do anything. We are like it's like the difference between a regular light bulb and a laser beam. You can have a regular light bulb, a 60-watt regular light bulb, and the photons are diffused. They're going off in all different directions randomly, but you take the same power that powers that 60-watt incandescent light bulb and get those photons all going in the same direction. And what do you have? You have a laser beam.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true of our minds. If we got our minds, 100% in favor of something, nothing can stop us. Thomas Edison said if we did, Thomas Edison, I'm sure you've heard of him, he said, if we did all the things we're capable of, we would be absolutely astounded.
I've actually read about that quote, and I thought to myself, I really meditated on that one day, and I thought, boy, it really would just be astounding to even try.
Well, I cut it out and put it on my mirror, so when I go look in the mirror in my bathroom, there it is every day.
Fascinating stuff. Again, for the listeners out there, we're talking with Gene Younger and talking about how you can restore your eyesight naturally. The biggest thing is don't buy into the fact that as you age, people tell you, well, like aches and pains and the ability not to be flexible, that your eyesight is just one of those things that is going to fade along with age. Not so true. It's the fact that you believe in that causes the problem in the first place. You can be sure to visit Gene at the website clearvisionnaturally.com to find out how you can go about doing this. And my understanding, Gene, is they don't have to come into an office, that you can actually coach people anywhere, wherever they may be.
Yes, and I must say that if they live in Portland, it makes a lot of sense to come into the office,
Sure.
and have one-to-one, and I can do a better job. But I do have clients around the world, and the way that I do that, you may not know about this because I've developed this since the last time I was on your program. In 2009, about 10 of my clients here in Portland got together and created a DVD of the foundation basic exercises for eyesight improvement. And they did it, we actually recorded about 18 hours of video, and then we edited it down to just a little over an hour. These are real people really doing this stuff, and these are real people that have really done this stuff and gotten their eyesight improved and or gotten rid of their glasses. And so that program is called, I call it now the Home Vision Training Program, and people can get it on my website, and it comes with 2 prepaid 30-minute coaching sessions on Skype. So if a person has access to the Internet anywhere around the world, I give them a whole hour of coaching on Skype, and then they could purchase extra sessions if they want to. Besides that, I give them a lot of support by sending them additional information through email, and also oftentimes on phone calls. I'm in touch with my clients around the world. I really enjoy working with people on Skype. The reason I developed that program was because, Daniel, I was trying to do that without having anything for them to look at home. And I was especially working with people in England and I was trying to show them the eye exercises through that little camera. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't do it. So I said, okay, I got to send them something, and then I'll say, okay, go to chapter 2, go to chapter 3, whatever, and watch that exercise and practice it and then get back to me. And I do an assessment also. Like if you were to come to me in Portland, the first thing I'd do would be a vision assessment. But online, when a person purchases a program, the first thing I do is I send them a questionnaire. I review their questionnaire, and then our first session, we spend a little time assessing their vision and eyesight. Sometimes I send them a chart so they can measure it. And then from that, I help them tailor a practice plan that's suited particular to their lifestyle and their vision situation. So I'm enjoying doing that, and if anyone's interested, just go to my website and click on Home Vision Training Program, and it'll take you to a page that explains it.
Very good. Well, Gene, thank you for joining us here on the program. And again, for the listeners out there, the website is clearvisionnaturally.com.
You're welcome, and thank you and Joy for inviting me for being on the program. I really appreciate this opportunity.
We appreciate having you, especially when it comes to more natural modalities for people to be able to take healing into their own hands, especially if they have the right kind of guidance rather than, the other way, so to speak. So we want to thank you again for joining us here on the program.
And you can have a complimentary lesson.
Absolutely. Want to thank you, listeners out there, for tuning in. We've been talking with Gene Younger. Again, the website is clearvisionnaturally.com. You can find out more about that. Also, be sure to join us by visiting us at our blog spot, which is beyond50radio.blogspot.com. We've got great archives and hot links for you. We'll have that there. Clearvisionnaturally.com is a hot link there as well, so you can find out more about that and also share it with others as well. We want to thank you, listeners, for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past halfway.